And mental health is something that we don't talk about enough. In the black community, well, we're massively overrepresented in the mental health institutions, even more so than in the prisons. And again, these are questions we have to ask. Well, why?
But once you get a control and an understanding of who you are, no one can use you against you. No one can ever use your mental illness against you. You've already spoke about it, so what you got?
The biggest point in life to resolve mental health is like giving a fuck about a person.
Where did you get the courage? I got the courage. The 2 words. I care.
It's Chill Will Radio, where connections will be made, advice will be given, jokes will be told, and things will get real. My name is Willis Cooks, and I'm your host. But understand this show is not meant to be used as a substitute for a relationship with a licensed mental health professional. Enjoy the show, y'all. Yo, welcome to another episode of Chill Will Radio. It's another episode of Chill Will Radio, man. Welcome everyone, man, to another dope episode of Chill Will Radio. Willis Cooks, that is me, that is my name, that is the man. We're here talking mental health, all things mental health, the good, the bad, the ugly, the not so ugly, the taboo, the things we're supposed to be talking about, whatever it comes to mind, it all goes well, it all gels, it all comes together. Mental health is shit, everything. The positive side of it, the good side of it, how motivated you are, how dedicated you are, your lack of self-esteem, your confidence, your whatever it is, it all goes together, it all gels well, and it's all coming into one, man. And we're talking about it all here on Chill Will Radio. But how's my week so far, man? Well, before I even get into that yet, thank you for those listening, man. Good looking to those individuals who are tuning in. Good looking to those individuals who will be tuning in like halfway through the show because you got something to do. Good looking to those individuals who will be tuning in tomorrow, next week, next year, next month, next lifetime, when it's aliens on this planet somewhere. Good looking to you, and even more so, good looking to all those individuals who are not going to be tuning in at all because you haven't caught on yet. I always say, man, you ain't got to catch on right now, but you will catch on eventually, man. You will catch on the good news. You will catch on the Chill Will. You will catch on to all this, man, in due time. So, how was my week, man? My week was cool. It was real kind of busy, just getting a lot of errands done, getting a lot of things done, man, with this, I guess, this upcoming vacation or trip, getting stuff situated. But I'm excited for it. I haven't really been excited for much of anything. I ain't gonna say ever, but in a long time. In a very, very long time. And it's hard for me. I'm a very chill individual. I try to be as stoic as possible. And it's hard for me to get excited. When it comes to a lot of situations. So this is the first time I've ever, I'm not gonna say ever, but this is the first time I felt like I've literally been okay with being excited, right? Because there will be times where I would be excited, but I'm too chill to really speak about it. I'm too chill to actually kind of like want to say like, yo, I'm excited, or yo, I'm happy. Now I'm just like, man, I'm just ready to just really be fully engulfed in whatever feelings it is. And it's not even just the excitement part of feelings that I'm learning how to really engulf in, but it's everything, right? It's that part, it's the sadness, it's the anger, it's the happiness, it's the insecurities, it's the things I'm confident in, it's everything, right? It's just being able to really not run away from those feelings and really embody and really live in that moment of those feelings, right? Because that's the one thing that we all need to do. That's the one thing we always do. We run away from a lot of our situations. Especially our feelings. We run away from our feelings, and then we sit there and wonder why things consistently go left, right? Maybe if we took the time to just kind of just sit down and just embody whatever is there, maybe things will begin to open up. Maybe you'll start to see answers that were never there. Maybe you will begin to, have a better perspective or a better idea on whatever situation you have. The answer that you're looking for is directly in front of you, but because we block ourselves off from the feelings that come with certain things, we walk around angry, we walk around pissed off, we walk around with this chip on our shoulder. When that chip on our shoulder doesn't have to be there, but sometimes we put it there because of the things that we run away from. So that was kind of like my week in a nutshell. And that was been like me just, I guess, throughout this year, especially throughout this year, this whole year, 2019, and it's June 2nd, the half of the year, right? The year, now we're on the other end of that. Now we're on the back end of the year. First part of the year, I really been focusing on that, right? Embodying those feelings, living in the moment of those feelings, not running away from the feelings. And this shit is hard as fuck, especially when you're pissed, right? Like, I'm the type of individual that when I'm mad, I don't like talking because I don't know how to, because you can't separate emotion from logic, right? And I try to be a very logical thinker, but when I'm in an emotional state, I can't think logically. So I would rather just be quiet, because what I'm going to say, I'm not going to say anything disrespectful. I'm not going to sit here and call somebody a bitch or whatnot, but thinking logically when you're angry is not, no. It's just not possible, because you're too emotionally tied into it. And there's nothing wrong with being emotionally tied to something, but we just have to make sure whatever we are emotionally tied to, that it's not destructive, that it's not coming back and harming me on the other end. So when it comes to these emotions and stuff like that, I've just been learning how to live in the moment. And it's tough, and it's hard, but I commend everyone, right? And that's the self-care piece, right? Moving on forward to the self-care piece, the one thing I challenge everyone to do, live in the moment of your feelings, right? Whatever you're feeling at that moment, take a quick second and just to stop, to feel those feelings, right? Feel those feelings. There may be certain situations to where you can't sit there and just really embody that sadness, right? Because you're at work, or you're in a meeting, or you may be in whatever, you may be in a public setting. There may be certain situations to where you get some bad news and you can't really feel those feelings that come associated with those bad news or with the good news. You got to take it for what it is. But when you do get that quick second, to 2 seconds, to 3 seconds, to 5 seconds, whatever, make sure that you do your best to actually feel those feelings. Understand those feelings. See how your body feels. See how your body reacts, right? See if your legs tingle, if your palms sweat. See if your stomach feels a little weird. See what shakes. See what part of your body becomes a little bit more, numb, or whatever it is, right? Because your body is going to change associated with whatever feelings come. When you get angry, a lot of people get hot, right? When I get pissed off, I get hot, right? I get very, very hot. When I get sad, I don't know why, I get cold. It's weird as hell, but when I get sad, I'm not super freezing cold, but my hands get a little cold when I get sad. So there's a lot of things that goes into it, right? When I get nervous, my palms sweat, right? My hands get a little tingly when I get nervous, right? I feel it in my stomach. We all feel it in our stomach, but the thing is, the more we try to run away from those feelings are never and will never be able to die. And granted, they're never going to die out. The thing is, it's a matter of being comfortable within those feelings, right? Understanding those feelings and understanding how to live within those feelings, right? Being comfortable with the anger, being comfortable with the nervousness, being comfortable with whatever it is. And that's the important part, right? That's the most important part, because you will never be able to get comfortable with something if you're continuing to run away from something, right? So that's the self-care piece that I want everyone to implement within their day, within their self-care regimen, whatever. There are going to be times in which you can't feel those feelings, but the quick little seconds you are able to back off and just reflect on how you feel within a certain situation, do that. Reflect on it. It could be 5 minutes, it could be 10 minutes, whatever it is, but you're going to have to reflect. You're going to have to process. You're going to have to do the things that you need to do in order to get through that situation. Whether the feeling is good or bad, whether it's excitement, whether it's anger, whether it's whatever. There's no such thing as a negative feeling. Our behaviors and how we react to that feeling is what make that feeling negative. Because we all can be very, very angry, but it's about how we use that anger. We all can be very, very sad, but it's about how we use that sadness. We all can be very, very happy, but it's about how we use that happiness. How are we going to use and utilize those emotions that come forward from it, right? How are you going to utilize it? The only one true way you're going to be able to learn how to utilize it is if you start running away from it and just embody it, all right? So that's the regimen I want everyone to really put into their self-care piece, right? Just take a second and just feel your feelings, right? Feel those feelings, feel those feelings, feel those feelings. So moving on forward into the main topic of the show, man, I got my man, Terrence. back again. What's the deal, bro?
What's going on, Will?
How you feeling, my man?
Blessed, man. It's good to be back, man.
Man, I appreciate. I know it was a last minute thing, but hella last minute. I texted you like this morning.
Yeah.
And the topic that we're speaking about today isn't even a topic that I initially planned for the show. It was something that just popped up in my head, man, and I just thought, like, hey, you be the perfect dude to chop it up with about it, man. But
I appreciate it. I appreciate you having that first thought of me, man. That's what's up, man. Makes me feel good.
Man, but how you been, though, man? How's your week? How's things going?
Everything's good, man. Just grinding, man. We were talking off air about working every day and getting, got high aspirations, got high goals, putting the work in right now. So it's been good, man. It's been a blessing. It's all good stuff. It's all good stuff.
Okay.
For sure.
Good. And everything's good at home?
Yeah, family's good. Girlfriend's doing well.
Good.
Everybody's good, man.
You got to come on the show with your girl, man. She's social working.
Hey, yo, you got to have her. Yo,
couples radio hour.
Yeah, she's smart, too. She's super smart. She's very thoroughly immersed in the field. So most definitely, I'm gonna have her.
You said she's a traveling social worker, right?
Yeah, so she's more like she does like the consultant stuff.
Yeah.
So like the macro social work, like big moves, like going to different states and implementing programs and training staff and different. Yeah,
making us little direct.
Making us look weak.
He said big moves. Like, all right, we on the floor. Yeah, she in the office in the penthouse.
She's doing amazing things. Absolutely.
But that's good, man. That's really, and I think that's the dope thing about social work, because a lot of people, and I'm sure you got this when you was in school, but in undergrad, for me, everybody was looking at social workers as, those are the people that take the kids away.
Yeah.
To work for the county to take the kids away.
That was my thought too.
Exactly. Yeah. And, just throughout school and just really now that I'm fully within the field, it's like, yo, you can do fucking anything.
You could do social work. It's the only profession you can do anything.
Literally.
You can do anything. You can create your own. You can work for somebody else. You can do it's a lot of amazing things you can do in social work.
You can create your own little area. You can create, like, I don't know how your girl got into the consulting side of it, but that's another side of social workers that I knew about it, but I didn't know how to get into it.
Yeah.
I thought that was like a lane that, the more seasoned social workers done got into it when they just trying to retire or when they trying to chill.
Yeah, no, like there's ways, man.
Yeah.
There's ways, trust.
Ways to do anything.
But I'm gonna tell her to come up on the show one time.
Oh man, that'd be dope.
For sure.
That'd be dope. But the topic that I want to talk to you today, man, is we're speaking about bias, right?
Right on.
Bias within therapists, right? And that's an important thing, right? The reason why that's an important thing, because one, just not even just as therapists, but just as people, we all deal with our bias. I know we all have our opinions. We all have our little thoughts that's going to make us lean a little bit towards the left, right? Because that's just how we was raised. It's because of how things went. It's just because of the situation. And just to go forth, because I know I said I just came up with this thought last night. Just to kind of reiterate, because I know we spoke about it before the show, but I was watching, I was at my uncle's house and I was watching When They See Us, right? That Netflix special. And there's a lot of different parts within it. I literally only watched probably like the first half of it. I didn't get too deep into it. And the reason why I backed off from it, the reason why I literally like left, because I felt myself getting mad. I felt myself getting angry. I'm not the black man that can sit there and watch that. I'm not the black person that can sit there and watch slave movies. I'm not the black man that can sit there and watch, black people getting beat online and like all of that shit resurfaces all the time. And I sit there and I ask, like, why the hell are y'all playing this like over and over and over and over? And for me, and I don't know about it is for you, and please let me know, but for me, it's kind of like for me, I'm looking at, especially when it comes to the police brutality videos that are online, I'm looking at it as stay in your place, nigga, because this is what can happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a point with me, like with the police brutality situations, because I've tasted the baton too. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I've been in custody, technically, not sent to jail, but in police custody. And it's one of those things, it's like, I don't know what the purpose is as far as like highlighting these things. Like obviously, we want to bring awareness to these things, but just for me personally, kind of how you were saying, is like for me, it's very triggering. So it's like, you know, when I see the police today, I have just a feeling in me where it's like I have to either this person can. And it's just this one person can control my life in so many different ways.
For real.
You know what I'm saying? That's a lot of power you give somebody.
Yeah.
Especially if you've been through those situations before. It's you see like that and you're like, dang, like, you know, so even like my bias towards like police officers, you know what I'm saying?
For
like
real,
it's there, it is there.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
and even if you never had any negative interactions with police officers, right? Like, because I can say for myself, have I had encounters with the police officers? Yes. Have I had negative encounters with the police officers that were due to my own personal behavior towards it? Yes, because I have a problem with authority. Have I had problems with police officers to where I felt like they were just doing too much? Yes, but has the majority of my interaction with the police been peaceful or positive, or nothing came from it? The majority of it has been fine. But I think that because it's the constant reminder on social media and everybody's replaying it, and then you see how like everything gets, when it's on social media, everything kind of gets blocked. It kind of gets banned. But that's the one thing that never gets blocked. That's the one thing that never gets banned.
Right.
So for me, and I'm sure it's a lot of black people, but whenever there's a police officer driving up behind you, or whenever you see a police officer, you immediately catch some type of feelings.
Right. So I think even going back to your what you're originally saying, like therapists having a bias. You know what I'm saying? So like what happens as me being a therapist and a police officer comes to me, or they disclose they used to be a police officer or a police officer and they are needing my services. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you know, it's something you have to really work through, and it's something you really have to acknowledge. And I'm appreciative of even you just acknowledging like your own bias, because the thing is like we all have biases. You know what I'm saying? We all have prejudices, quote unquote. Like people are like, oh, I'm not prejudiced, I don't have no bias. Like somebody tell you like they're not biased or they're not prejudiced in some capacity is a liar. I'll tell you that much. Only because it's not a bad thing. I think it's a bad thing when you utilize that as a component of power and you try to manipulate certain things to have it go in your favor, or if you are just trying to change things from one thing to another. You know what I'm saying? So when you have these prejudices and biases, it's like, what do you do with that? You know what I'm saying? I think just for me personally, acknowledging it is like number one, and also just working through it is a number two. You know what I'm saying? Because if you don't work on it, you don't acknowledge it, it's very, very difficult for somebody to actually you actually be able to help somebody.
But a lot of the times we have those a lot of our biases sometimes is very unconscious.
Oh, absolutely.
We're not aware of it, and then when we do become aware of it, we don't want to connect, right? We don't want to accept it because it's like, yo, what the fuck, that's really been there? We don't know where it came from. But let me give you this hypothetical, and this literally popped up in my head as you was talking. Let's say we woke up tomorrow, boom. I don't know, a law has been passed, right? Every police officer that has enforced some type of violence or some type of abuse to any type of citizen, they have to go to therapy. So the next police officer that comes to you is a white therapist. Is a white police officer, and he's sitting on your couch because he done beat up this black man. You gonna take that client?
So the one thing about me, I don't ever turn down a client. I let the client turn down me. Now let me do. You
don't think that's bad, bro?
Let me clarify.
Go ahead,
I never turn down a client. I never say like I can't work with anybody.
All right.
I always suggest that somebody else may benefit. You may benefit from working better with somebody else.
Okay, true.
The outcomes may be a lot different. Now, will I work with that person? I'll work with them. Will it be 100% authentic? That's the issue. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll do my job, but as far as like, you know, my own consciousness of what's going on, it's going to be a disservice to them.
Yeah.
So the best thing for me is to either maybe have that client explore other options and let them know I'm willing to work with them, but also having an understanding of, there's some stuff I still need to work on as well as a therapist.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm not necessarily always saying I'll turn down a client or whatever like that just because I don't want to work with them. But sometimes you have to look at it as like, it's not about me, it's about the client.
Exactly.
And what is this client going to actually, what are they going to benefit from working with me or working with somebody else that doesn't necessarily have that?
It's definitely true, because we don't turn down clients where we understand that if I continue with this, it's going to be a disservice, like you just said. So let me refer you to someone who I know is a little bit more knowledgeable, or who their biases won't be in the way. Would I take that police officer? I'm gonna refer him out. I'm gonna refer him out only for my well-being, because when we're dealing with trauma therapy, because that's the type of therapy it's going to be. When we're dealing with trauma therapy, you're constantly revisiting that therapy. So when that police officer is telling me what brought them to therapy and telling me that incident, what I'm going to unconsciously do, and I would think every black male would unconsciously do, they will put themselves in that body of that black male that would be getting beat. So I honestly don't think it's really possible, right? Because I do think, yes, they need to go ahead and be charged and go to jail and all these other things. However, there's another level of therapy that goes within that, because it's deeper than just like a power struggle. What's your relationship with power? Why is your relationship with power that damn deep to where you're able to just take it out on someone else? Where does it stem from? Those type of things need to be, uncovered. Because when it comes to therapy, it's a lot of tough shit that we don't want to speak about.
Right.
There's a lot of people who we honestly believe should not go to therapy. Like, a lot of people don't think R. Kelly should go to therapy. A lot of people don't think, if that happened if that was a police officer, that police officer shouldn't go to therapy. Right. But should they go? Should they be open to it? Yeah, it's just the biases within it is really, really, tough. Ron. Yes, this is live, my man. This is live. Welcome. Thank you for tuning in. But another thing I wanted to speak about when it came to biases as a therapist is, one, because you spoke about acknowledging them. How are you going to acknowledge those biases?
I think as a therapist, you always have to do your own work. You know what I'm saying? Like, you always have to do your own work and be aware of what you can tolerate and what you're not going to tolerate. So I think with that self-awareness, having that self-awareness gives a better opportunity for you to acknowledge like your biases and like your prejudices. So, for example, if if you're a victim of like a rape, domestic violence, or anything like that, and you have a client that is the quote unquote the perpetrator of rape or domestic violence, then it's being aware of like what it may be triggering for you, and like you said, maybe refer that person out, or and a lot of that stuff, like it may come up in session. Like, I've been in sessions before where it's like stuff I've I guess you could say like buried down deep down inside, and then all of a sudden the client mentions it, and then it's like it resurfaces again. You know what I'm saying? So I think being aware of those things and like your own life experiences and your own your own worldview and your own compass on how you see things is important as a therapist, because if you don't have an understanding of those things, then it can be hard to identify, like,
especially your life experiences, right? And how they could and how they could affect it. What do you feel like is some of your biases?
That was a doozy.
Let me speak about mine while you sit on yours a little bit.
I need to think about mine for sure.
It kind of goes into what we were speaking about before the show. Because of how I was raised, because of what I've seen and things like that, raised in a position where you're not really tolerable of excuses, right? So when I work with individuals who are quote unquote privileged, right, and they have certain things on their plate that could aid them in being able to get through this situation a whole lot quicker. And when you're telling me certain things, I'm looking at those in my head as like, okay, you're just giving me an excuse. Because of that, I noticed myself, I'm a little bit more tougher on certain people, right? If you come into me and you have these privileges and this is the first thing that has ever hit you, and in comparison to like other clients, and we're not supposed to do that, but in comparison to other clients, I may see that, you know, this situation ain't really that big, or me as a therapist, I done been through worse things than you. I start to lean towards the side of like, yo, just stop coming up with these excuses. I start to lean towards the side of being a little bit more tougher, a little bit more like straightforward with that individual. For me, I have to realize that, one, that's not fair for the client. It's not, because everything affects everybody differently, right? Just because that one situation hits them, it may be the hardest thing for them. You know, like I've had my mother pass, but that hasn't been the hardest thing for me. If your mom passed today, did you have your mother still alive, correct?
Okay. Oh no, she is alive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Knock on wood. Hold on.
You
Knock
said
some
no.
wood real quick. Yeah. No, she's still alive. Yeah.
God forbid your mother passed. That may be one of the hardest things for you, right? Because we all deal with things differently. So it's unfair to the clients in those regards, and it forces me to back off and just really kind of check myself. Like, hold up, Willis, look. Before you even judge, right? Because it is kind of judging, right? Before you even judge, right? Understand that this isn't you, and this isn't another client. So it goes back into the whole aspect of being aware of it. But once you're aware of it, you have to instantly check yourself. Right. You have to instantly be 100% honest with yourself to the max.
Absolutely.
Because you're doing a disservice to the client.
You are, most definitely. I did think of my prejudice, and I was just like, what is it? My prejudice, and especially like working with clients, are people who are like clients who are liars and clients who aren't willing to take responsibility for their actions.
Okay.
Like that for me, and previously working with people who are previously, like before working with people who are previously incarcerated, that's a big thing.
Yeah.
It's a big thing where it's like, okay, like you're talking about convictions, you're talking about people who, you know, you don't know if they did it or they didn't do it. Or you're saying like, you know what, I'm looking at the file, like it looks like you did it, it may not. So like looking at all those things for me, that's where my kind of prejudice is trying to be a detective, I guess you can say, and understanding if this person's lying or if this person's telling the truth. Now, the work I've done on it so far is just realizing it's not my position to say if somebody done something or didn't do something.
Oh, for real, yeah.
Yeah, but it's more so like where they at right now and working those things.
Yeah.
And then, you know, obviously the past and all that stuff will come later, but it's not my job to judge somebody's like fate.
We're
you know
not
what I'm
lawyers
saying?
or nothing.
Exactly. And I think that came a lot with like me being very judgmental, like growing up around other people, and like being judgmental to myself too. So like when I'm with clients and they're lying about something or they're not willing to take responsibility, it's like, okay, like what are some things like in the past I didn't take responsibility for? What are some things that, you know, I may be struggling with?
Do you always go back to like, okay, if I was in that position, what has it been like for me? For you?
That's where my empathy comes in, where it's putting myself in the client's shoes and understanding what they're going through. Okay, if they are lying, there's probably a reason, you know, because I've lied before, and there's a reason why I lied, because I didn't want to take responsibility for something. You know what I'm saying?
If you're telling me you've always told the truth, you're lying about that.
Exactly. So it's like, you know, big or small lie, a lie is a lie.
Exactly.
And somebody taking responsibility is for. It's sometimes a defense mechanism, which, you know, that's why I used it, whether if it was, okay, I didn't want to get physically disciplined by, you know, my parents, or if I just didn't want to face the consequences of whatever's going to come. You know what I'm saying? So those are my things when working with clients. Like, it's like, you know, are you willing to take responsibility? I think even going for what you're saying too is like, with the responsibility, can you take responsibility for your actions and actually do something with what you're going through? Or are you going to make excuses, keep making these excuses, and not be willing to do that?
Exactly.
But like I said, a lot of people, well, the majority of people, everybody's usually in therapy or in counseling for a reason. And it's not a therapist's position. It's not anybody's position to judge a client or judge them, or, you know, just being aware of the bias and working towards that.
And it's not, but it's like I always have to go back to, like, you know, we're human, so
absolutely,
it's not our job to judge. It's not our job to have those biases. It's not our job to have, you know, certain thoughts that come up in our head. But we're human. right? I think it's important for therapists to, like you said, be aware of it and to check it as quickly as possible, because once you don't check it, it's going to get bad. I know for me, it took a while for me to actually check that, because what I would tell myself is like, and this is early on, I don't do this now, but what I would tell myself is like, I'm just not going to work with that population, or I'm gonna just stick to this group of people, because it's just like I won't have to deal with the excuses. I won't have to deal with the lies. I won't have to deal with you bullshitting me, right?
Yeah.
Because like once I start to, a lot of the times I look at patients' reasoning for not being able to get through certain things, that I look at them as an excuse sometimes, right? Especially when, like I said, they're of privilege and they don't have much going against them. It's like, okay, you just now telling an excuse. But I've had to realize that you're not, like I said, you're doing a client a disservice, but you're also doing yourself a disservice as well. Right. Because you have to, in order to conquer those biases, you have to sit there and ask yourself, where do those biases come from? Where do those biases come from? Because if you don't take a second to step back and understand where they come from, just be a little bit more knowledgeable of them, you're always going to repeat that as a therapist. You're always going to go through it. You're always going to speak for it. You're always going to like do it, right? I know for me, has there ever been a certain population, like going back to when you first started, what was the population that you said you're definitely not going to work with?
I'm just thinking back. I didn't want to do therapy at all.
You didn't?
So nah, to be a therapist, hell no.
What happened, bro?
Life. Nah, real talk. I did not want to be a therapist. I'm just thinking like, dang, like I didn't even like have that intuition to say like I didn't want to work with anybody. I didn't want to be a therapist. Period. But just like I think before I was saying like I was having honest conversations with myself, and it's a long story, but I think the population I was not gonna be working with, and it's funny I ended up working with them, was people who committed sex offenses.
Yo,
like
mine too.
Yeah, so that was like that was just a population. I was like, you know what? I don't want to hear what was going on. I don't want to hear about their like all the other stuff, what they did and how they did and da da da. But interesting enough, I had a great opportunity to do that, to work with people, sex offenders, and it was actually a great experience. It was actually a really great experience. Like it's funny to say, because a lot of those times it just really put a different perspective on like people and what they go through and how they deal with things and their healing process towards stuff too. Yeah. So like, granted, I never condone the behavior. I would never condone the outcomes of what they did, and I don't, all that stuff. But I have a better understanding of those people and that population since I worked with them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And that was the population I've said from the gate. Like, cause for me, it wasn't therapy. Like you said, it's never been really therapy. But I've always knew I was gonna work with people. From the gate, it's like I'm not fucking with y'all. Because it's like I see y'all, and then I'm working with y'all. I'm in my head, I'm gonna want to punch you, or like you gonna tell me what happened. I'm gonna get pissed. Yeah. But it's exactly what you said. Once you start to work with them, you start to really gain an understanding of what happened. You start to gain an understanding of how it led to that. You start to realize, you start to feel sorry for those individuals, and that's where the empathetic, I guess, your empathetic system and your empathetic eye or whatever it is starts to open up towards a lot of folks, right? Because I don't mind working with child molesters now. I wouldn't mind working with people who are rapists, That obviously would be something that we have to check into the door, but it's amazing how much you can grow if you're open to whatever situation is there.
Right. And like I said, that population was tough. It's a super tough population.
Why was it tough for you at the time?
Oh, absolutely.
How so?
It was just doing intakes, hearing what happened, reading files, them having to, tell me what, and it's so that treatment's a lot different than like normal therapy.
Yes.
Because it's a lot of narration.
Yep.
It's a lot of narrative therapy. It's a lot of, a little bit CBT and stuff like that. But it's like, reliving the trauma and doing this. So, just mentally, it's just like, and we're talking about a topic that's kind of taboo too. So it's like, there's really no like in-depth training on like how to work with that population either. So a lot of stuff was just trial and error. You know what I'm saying? So,
I'm just thinking like of the training part. Like, you're right. I'm trying to find like some type of modality or some type of intervention or something that can go with that population.
There's the whole umbrella CBT and narrative therapy, but like in depth, there's like there's a model that follows like the 12 steps and the 12 steps, but there's not really like anything. But you'll find out too with that population, like it's a lot of trauma work. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of people who are committed sex offenses were molested themselves.
For real.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's just my experience working people. I don't want to put that as like as a fact.
That's it. But that's the truth, right? Because my first patient my first client who was a rapist, his thing was sex offense. So, and I know in my situation, it was we wasn't going over particularly his acts, but we were really going over the trauma that he had went through,
right,
and helping him understand how that connects to his behavior now.
Right.
So I guess it's a little bit of CBT, but it's just more so connecting the past with the present.
Yeah, you got to make your own little formula sometimes. And that's where creativity comes in as a therapist. And that's why I say I'm glad I had that experience, because like I was able to like work on that bias, but also like, sharpen my clinical skills as well. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I had that job before I graduated. I had that school while I was in I had that job while I was in grad school. So
same as me.
Yeah. So yeah,
it was me.
dope.
I had it as an internship, bro. So I'm in a position where I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, and then it like fit at that time. It fit the typical client that I was like not trying to fuck with. Privilege. Young white male who ain't from the hood, who has everything handed to him, and he was a rapist. Like at that point in time, I was just like, nah, I'm only working with inner city kids, and you got to be of a certain age, and I'm not really trying to mess with y'all. You got to be a quote unquote minority, and blah 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 blah. So it was like that patient was like everything. I was like, no, So it was interesting to figure out, how we adapt to it within it.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's a tricky formula. You know what I'm saying? And that comes with me doing my own work. Like, I was in therapy at the time, working on my own stuff, working on my own life stuff. Because a lot of times you think of therapists, people are listening, like you think a therapist is like having it all together. Sometimes that's not always the fact, but a good therapist will always work on their stuff, because we are humans, like you were saying earlier. We are all humans. We all have stuff. We all have life events that happen. We all have stressors and all this other stuff. So, like, doing our own work has a lot to do with, like, how we work with other people.
So you said one of your biases is lie when the patient is lying and giving up a bunch of excuses, right?
Not accepting responsibility.
Not accepting, not being accountable, and things like that. Where do you feel that bias stems from?
I think for me, it stems from different places. I grew up like in a house that was, we went to church every Sunday. So I think the whole, like, thou shalt not lie had a lot to do with it. I feel like just my mischievous ways and like knowing the benefits of not taking responsibility and like how people, like how I've manipulated in the past was triggering. So I think that's where a lot of that stems from, just like my upbringing and like, seeing like, okay, and let me backtrack. There is no real true benefit for not accepting responsibility. know what I'm saying? It's just a putting a Band-Aid on like a faucet that's leaking. You know
You said there's no benefit. You said there's no benefit of not accepting responsibility.
There's no true benefit in not accepting responsibility. So what I mean by that is, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. Because for a second I thought you were saying there's no benefit in accepting responsibility, but I don't know why I just skated past.
Maybe I got my words twisted.
No,
if I
you
did
said
say
right.
that, yeah.
You
So
right.
there's no true benefit, and it's a double negative.
Yeah, that's why.
Not respect. So everybody know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, because in the long run, like, it doesn't work. You know what I'm saying? Like I've noticed this in my life, like that just doesn't work.
It doesn't work in the long run, but it works. It works now, and we don't know how to. We're not capable of, or we're not. It works now, and that's really all that we're focused on. Like, we're not worried about what's going to happen tomorrow or how this lie is going to affect us later on. It just sometimes it just happens, right? Sometimes not accepting the responsibility is just an unconscious behavior. Not even in just clients, but with therapists as well. Not accepting the responsibility that you may not be 100% right for this client, because every therapist doesn't match with every client, just like every client don't match with the therapist. So it may be cool at the moment, but it's in the long run, like you said, it's not beneficial.
Right, yeah. So, like, it coming with even going back to like the bias and, like, you know, people having their own prejudice and therapists having their own prejudices and biases. There's a lot of work that has to be done with therapists. There has to be like and I feel like I always feel like it's mandatory, and I know MFT programs do it, but MSWs we don't necessarily do it, but just making it mandatory for, like, as part of the curriculum, like you going to therapy and working on your own stuff.
They do?
Yeah, MFTs. Yeah, they.
Is it just in certain schools, or is it?
I think it's part of the curriculum. I mean,
damn.
If there's MFTs listening, I don't know, but
and shouts out to y'all.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, everybody is part of this stuff. They have to go to therapy. Yeah, because one of their models is, like, you know, you talking about, you know, encouraging people to go into therapy and doing all this other stuff, but, you know, if you're not doing it yourself, you know, but that's just part of their curriculum.
It's hypocritical. It's hypocritical. We're preaching therapy, but we're not taking it. You know, we're preaching therapy, but we're not taking it. But yeah, but bias is just bias in general. As a therapist, it's a hard thing to get over, especially if you don't know it. Especially if that bias is very, you know, unconscious, and you don't know how to really get around it.
And it causes more harm. And one of our ethics is to not cause any harm to any client. You know what I'm saying? Like, having a prejudice can be harmful in ways. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you feel vindictive, or you feel, you know, I can't even get the, like, if it's ever a point where you feel like you're doing a disservice, like, again, that's when it's time to cut it.
Do you feel as if there's a client right now on your caseload that you have some bias towards?
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Okay, because I know it is for me as well too.
Yeah.
How do you conquer that for you?
I was trying to familiarize myself with the person. I know before we used to be able to, like, read files before people come in, but now, you know, where I'm at now, we kind of just take whatever the client says and as, you know, fact. You know what I'm saying? And when we take, and what I mean fact is, like, you know, what's real and what's not real, but this again comes from with me working on, like, people who are dishonest, but just realizing what's going on in their world, you know what I'm saying, versus what's actually going on in the real world. You know what I'm saying? If people are, you know, if somebody, I've had clients come in smelling like a pound, smelling super loud like weed, and they come in like, you know, oh no, I don't smoke weed. Like, okay, bro, like, but I was saying that to say this, because if a client comes in and they're giving us their story and telling us about their lives and their experiences, we have to take that
for what it is.
As for what it is. You know what I'm saying? Whether if it's true or not true. Like, that's their world.
Yeah.
That's their world, and that's that's what we have to respect about them.
Yeah. The one thing I try to do, and I like what you said, but the one thing I try to do is to make sure I don't read their file before I meet the client, because I know that once I read it, everything's gonna start coming.
It's a wrap.
Everything's gonna start coming, and I go forth within it. That initial intake session is just going to be me kind of judging you and kind of expecting certain responses that you're giving.
Yeah.
You know, let me just try to take you as an open book, but it's hard for me to just try to take the client's word for what it is. Because I'm looking at it like, you as a client, you don't even know what you're talking about. You may know the story and what happened, but the feelings that are associated with it, you may not really be familiar with that because you've never tried to familiarize with them at all.
Right. But that's where I think that's where that relationship comes in, where it's like they're the expert in their world.
True.
And we can see like what they're going through, but at the same time, we won't be able to identify and pick those things out until they're ready. You know what I'm saying? Because we can see somebody and, you know, they experience all these things, and you're like, dang, they got a lot of trauma going on. You ask them, like, hey, like, you know, have you ever experienced trauma? Like, oh, no, I never experienced trauma. You're like, really?
And then they don't know. And then because they don't know that situation is traumatizing, we want to be careful to not put our biases on that and try to force that.
Right.
Because some people just don't want to accept the fact that there was trauma. Then once you tell them that it's traumatizing, and once they really like, oh shit, that digs a deeper hole.
And that's where the point of, like, you know, therapy, if you ever participate in therapy or like had clients in therapy, like sometimes it gets worse before it gets better, and that's where when you start learning stuff and you're like, damn, like that's where that emotion came from, or okay, dang, like I thought that was something that passed, but it's surfacing back up. Then you have all these feelings, and like, you know, you have a what we call like psychoeducation. We provide psychoeducation to clients. They start learning terms and start learning like symptoms and behaviors. We talk about durations and frequencies and their diagnosis and all that stuff. And it's like, damn, like, you know. And then once I provide psychoeducation to some clients, they're like, damn, like I'm crazy, huh? And I'm like, no, you're not crazy. You're just going through a lot. You're not crazy. I don't want to put that. They're literally like, I'm crazy, huh?
Yo, you
like,
right.
No, you're not
it's like
crazy.
A light bulb went up in my head. Like, damn, that is me.
And I'm like, and to normalize everything, I'm like, look, honestly, you're not the only person that's going through this. Like, there's been plenty of people that hasn't even came through those doors and willing to get the help that you want.
For real.
And the fact that you're here talking to me, and we just met like an hour ago, and you telling me all this stuff, I really appreciate that.
And it
you know what I'm saying?
And it says you at least want the help.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because you could have kept your mouth shut.
You could have kept your mouth shut. You could have not came. You could have not waited those couple hours to get an intake. But you're here, and I'm glad you're here, and I hope you keep coming back. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and especially when it's a male. Males go to therapy, they just don't stick with it. That's one thing I've realized. They go to therapy and they just don't stick with it, because as a male, it's like we put our own personal ego and biases on the situation. It's like, okay, once I'm a little bit knowledgeable of whatever it is, I got it.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah. Or I went on WebMD, or I'm gonna do my own. I'm gonna be my own therapist. Nah.
That's 100% facts, man. But moving on to the question, right? The main question that I always like to leave everyone with. The main question I like to leave everyone with, but I don't really write it out during the show or before the show. I just come up with it during the show. We're speaking about bias. Right? My question for you, Terrence, and for everyone that's listening, your bias outside of the realm of therapy, because not everyone's a therapist listening to this, but just your bias as a person. How has your bias as a person affected your day-to-day life?
My bias as a person?
Yeah, just your personal bias on whatever it is. How has it affected your everyday life?
Man, like it limited me for sure. Like, you don't realize how much you put into like your own world, and you restrict so much stuff out, and you don't allow other perspectives and other things to manifest in you, and learn about other things, and be optimistic and be open to the fact where it's like, okay, like I'm really not living life. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I have all these prejudices and I'm not acknowledging them, and two, like I'm letting them guide me into whatever prejudice or whatever standard I need to uphold by endorsing this prejudice or this bias, is limiting. It's kind of exhausting too.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You see people that like prejudice isn't always hate, but hate can be a form of like how prejudice
True.
is perceived, right? So I'm gonna use the word like hate. Like if somebody hates somebody, it takes a lot more work to hate somebody.
To maintain
you
that
really
hatred.
have to.
Yeah.
You really have to be focused on hating somebody. You really do. Like you have to be focused on hating a group of people. You have to be focused on hating like a demographic. You have to surround yourself with that. So like if a person comes up and they, you hate that type of person and hate that type of demographic, you really have to focus and like go away and like have all these thoughts about it. Whereas opposed to like if you just like accept people for who they are and accept them, not necessarily agreeing with them and whatever their moral compass is, but just having an understanding of who they are and they're equal just like you. Like it's a lot easier. That's what I found. Like I've limited myself by having like a lot of prejudice and a lot of views on people.
Yeah,
you know
or even if you just dislike that person, or even if you just dislike that group of people, like some people may disagree with this, but even if you dislike that person even if you dislike that group of people, that's okay. We all have our own opinions. We all have our own beliefs. If you don't like me, you don't have to like me. If you don't like that group of people over there, you don't have to like that group of people over there. But it's exactly what you said. When we put all of our energy towards that hatred, we start to behave on it. If I don't like you, I just don't like you, and I'm just going to stay over here. I'm not causing any harm to you. You're not causing any harm to me. Me disliking you isn't doing anything for the both of us, so it's just like, forget it. I don't have to accept you. I don't have to accept you, but what I do have to do is not purposely allow your presence to disrupt my peace. And that's what a lot of it is.
Yeah.
So, but it's exactly what you said. Going back into answering that question for me, you kind of took the words right out of my mouth in terms of like limits. For me, it limits. I have a lot of biases towards people. Just to be quite honest, I have a lot of biases towards people, and your bias and prejudice sometimes sometimes they can be interchangeable. Sometimes, being prejudiced is not a bad thing. Prejudice just means you're prejudging someone. We all prejudge everyone, right? When we look at someone, we think like that person may be whoop-de-whoop. The problem when it comes to being prejudiced is that you're sticking with that initial judgment after you learn who that person is, and that becomes a problem. Like, oh, that dude is a terrible guy. I met him; he's actually a cool dude, but you're still a terrible guy. Even though you're a cool dude, and everyone else knew you're a cool dude, you're still a terrible guy. That's where prejudice comes from. So for me, my biases when it comes to people is very limiting, because what I do is instead of going forth and trying to figure out or open up or trying to learn that person, I just like, you look like somebody I won't be really rocking with, so I'm just over here. I'm not even finna try to, because I know once I try to do it, it's okay, I'm gonna be sucked into the person, and then it's like, oh, you really dope. I don't really want to give up the energy for that, because it's a battle to even try to fight through your own biases. Like, this shit is tough, but it's a constant work for all of us, man.
Absolutely, it's an ongoing thing. And that's life. You know what I'm saying? Like, our needs change, our perspectives change. And if your perspective doesn't change as the years go by, I don't know what to say about that, because if it's always one thing, obviously you have your core and your own moral compass, but if you're not open and you're not like thinking and you're not developing like your worldview, then
you're selling yourself short, dog.
Absolutely, you're not living life, man. You're not
selling yourself short, man. But my man, good looking for coming through, brother.
Oh, absolutely, man. Anytime, man.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Sure.
I really appreciate you coming through, especially with it being last minute. But as always, but let people know where to find you, and let people know what you got going on and all that good stuff.
Oh yeah. I have to think of my Instagram name. Damn.
Let me see if I can find it.
It's at TStewMSW, I believe. TSEWMSW.
You forgot how to spell it,
bro. It's Terrence Stewart. It's TStewMSW. Yeah. Yeah, that's where on Instagram. That's where I'm pretty much on. And, if I'm not working, I'm scrolling up and down. That's my news outlet too. I don't even check the weather. I'll be walking out like, man, it's raining.
Sometimes that shit's a little bit more accurate than news.
Real talk.
For real. Sometimes it's way more accurate than news. And
Real
it's faster, too.
Absolutely.
You can figure some shit out on the
But,
spot.
but thank you for having me, man.
Man,
I
you will be
appreciate
back.
it.
Good looking, brother.
For sure.
As always, all thanks to those individuals who are listening. Thanks to those individuals who are tuning in. You tuned in halfway through the show. Good looking. If you're going to tune in tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, good looking to you too. If you ain't never going to tune in at all, shouts out to you too, my brother, man. With whatever you're doing right now and whatever you will forever be doing. Much peace and love, man. Always, 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 always remember, ain't no wealth without your mental health. So please stay blessed. Take care of yourself. Be great, y'all. Peace.